Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox, and it is probably the last video of the day. So do please hit subscribe if you haven't. We are just edging ever so close now. We are going to hit 9,000. If not today, then hopefully tomorrow. Do hit it. Let's get there. Let's get the 9,000 up today. It's down to you, good people. So do please hit that subscribe button. Ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video. But this last one is all about Cosla and Verity. And for those of you who, most of you will know, of course, but for those who are watching who are unaware, Cosla is the sort of the coalition of all the local authorities in Scotland. And they it's like an overarching body. So you have each, instead of each individual council going up and trying to approach the central government on an individual basis, they have this umbrella group called Cosla that deals with all of them as a body. They have that, and then there is Verity, which is the Verity House Agreement. This was signed off. It's not a legal document. It's not a contract in law, but it is a convention. It is a covenant, if you will, which says that both sides will act with good faith, and that anything that needs to change or whatever will be done by discussion and agreement and things like that. And this was signed by Humza Yousaf, who then almost immediately broke it. And now Cosla and all the local authorities are coming after the SNP. Let's go. So as I say, it's the last video of the day, so I wanted it to go out with something a bit good. I wanted something pleasing, just to see the SNP under attack from the very people it went into an agreement with. We actually have the picture. Before I go in and do the headline of the story, we actually have the picture of him meaninglessly and pointlessly signing this Cosla agreement, the Verity House agreement between the government and Cosla, where he promises to be a good boy and not change things and always involve them in the decision making, the decision making process. Not going to ride roughshod over them, and so that they can prepare. They'll always be aware of what's happening. They can plan budgets and things. And then he gets to the SNP convention up in Aberdeen, the annual gathering where they all turn up and then look at all these faceless, feckless nobodies on the stage and go, well, what are we doing? Nobody knows. It's like 14 men and a dog turn up. But he had a really rubbish speech and immediately went, I know, we'll freeze council tax. Nobody knew it was coming. Nobody had planned it. He hadn't costed it. And everyone in Cosla went, you're having a laugh. Because a lot of these councils, of course, had planned for 7, 8, 10% increases in their council tax. And he said he's going to fund it. And that's all very fine and well, on the one condition that he funds it. Only he doesn't even come anywhere near funding it. 130 million across all the councils. That's not 130 million each, you understand. They basically need, across the board, about nearly 10 times that amount of money. He hasn't got that kind of cash. Shoney Robertson stands there, makes a complete pig's ear of the worst budget ever, because they've spent all the money. They haven't got a clue what they're doing. They don't know what to do. They're raising tax here, raising tax there, putting charges up everywhere else, cutting savagely everything that they can possibly cut, with the exception, of course, of the independence budget and all the little foreign pretending embassies. It's just ridiculous. It's criminal. It's truly criminal. But what do you expect from this party, who knowingly signs that covenant with Cosla and breaks it? Not years later because he'd forgotten. Weeks later because he panicked at his conference. What a joke this man is. Anyway, Cosla aren't happy. So councils launch scathing attack on Humza Yousaf as he faces a bitter fight over savage budget cuts. Now, of course, they've got a vote on this budget yet. That's by no means assured now. Not with what's going on with Kate Forbes and her little faction. So that it could well be that Forbes leads a rebellion against the budget. And at that point, of course, Well, everything's up for grabs, isn't it? Local council leaders, including SNP politicians, have launched a broadside against the Scottish Government's budget and claimed it would not take the funding snub lying down, while accusing the SNP executive of breaching its much-lauded Verity House agreement. It's now dead in the water, Verity House agreement. It's now pointless, ruined, ripped up, shredded, burnt and buried, Verity House agreement. Dead as disco. Anyway, councils have launched a scathing attack on Humza Yousaf and his budget as the umbrella body Cosla vowed to demand more cash, as otherwise communities could be decimated. He announced this, and I've said this before, he announced this council tax freeze, and he expected the councils to agree to it. And some SNP councils may very well agree to it. But non-SNP councils may decide that it's much more fun to not disagree, not agree to it, and to raise council taxes anyway, simply so they can continue to provide the services. They're under no legal obligation. Humza Yousaf does not have control over local authorities, so his announcement, whilst he felt it was great and wonderful and made him look brilliant, will only work if he promises to fund them. Not going to happen, is it? Anyway, the Scottish Government claimed that it would fully fund a council tax freeze, as announced by the First Minister at the SNP conference back in October, wasn't it? But they only agreed then, afterwards, to provide 144 million in the budget, less than half of what was asked for. Well, less than half of what they was asked for if they were going for a 5% rise. But some councils were going for much more, and across the board it was calculated he'd have to find nigh on £1 billion. It just wasn't going to happen there. They're already £1.5 billion down the Swanee in the red, minimum, possibly nearer £2.5 billion. And then he announces this. It's like, the guy is a moron, isn't he? Anyway, it also breached, and this is the important thing for them, it also breached the much-lauded Verity House agreement signed by the SNP executive and Cosla. Cosla did their best. They are trying to keep to it, but he just went off and ignored it because he's far too important, far too grand. He isn't going to be controlled by things he's signed and said and done. Now the organisation has claimed that 3 of the main priorities identified in that deal will not happen due to a lack of cash being provided by central government. It means that local authorities will be unable to cut poverty, reform public services and transform economies through to net zero. Well, if you're not going to pay for it, you're going to get nothing, are you? Local council leaders have demanded a meeting with the Finance Secretary, Shona Robertson, as they press her for more cash, and they warned that services would be at breaking point with cuts in every community. And indeed, thousands, and literally thousands, of redundancy notices have already been sent out by councils across the whole of Scotland because they just don't have the budget come the last day of March. When you go into the new financial year, they're done. They hit out at the increases in government's internal costs, while their own budgets are disproportionately affected by cuts to capital funding. And in a statement on Wednesday, Cosla said the budget as it stands leaves not a single penny for transformational public service reform. There's very limited scope for the focus on spend to save, and the 2024 budget shows a clear difference between the treatment of local government and other public bodies, with local government disproportionately impacted by cuts to capital funding. They really are not happy bunnies. But then when you've got a woman with an IQ of 86 in control of the purse strings of the nation, what the hell do you expect? People will suffer. People will die. People will die because she cannot do her job. But where is she now? Is she hard at work, trying to work out ways of making sure that these things happen, that the vulnerable are cared for, that services are maintained? No, she's sitting in a very high-end Swiss chalet on a skiing holiday, supping champagne and not thinking at all about the harm she's done. Sums the SNP up, doesn't it? Coming up. It seems to be the official view of the SNP that when you sign agreements you don't have to keep them. They're meaningless. You sign them for the press, but then the press disappears, and then you can just break them. You've had your moment in the sun. You've had your little photo op, and it doesn't really matter. Well, I think Cosla have decided that, perhaps it does. And Cosla have decided that they are going to make his life a misery. It seems only fair. He's making everyone else's life a misery. Meanwhile, old 86 IQ is sitting there working out which end of a ski goes on her feet, which end goes up her arse. You know, she's tumbling down a hill, pissed on champagne, hick, wobble, 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 blob. You know, and going, oh, it's cold, isn't it? Yeah, well, that's what happens when you go up a mountain in winter. Not a single thought for the people, of course, because, hey, people can die. That's the price that she's willing to pay to push independence. Oh, dearie me. Let's have an election soon. The sooner the better. Thank you very much for watching. It's a good day. Let's end it well. Please hit subscribe. Let's get to 9,000. You can do it, guys. I can't. I've already subscribed. Hey. Until next time, stay safe, stay well, and I will not stop until these buggers are done. Bye.